Welcome. This is the Midlife Rising podcast. So here's something that I have had a little bit of trouble admitting. I have been feeling a bit lonely lately. And I've noticed that this isn't just me. It's actually a lot of midlife women, clients, friends. The two of us, Jen and I, have been talking about this as well. We feel disconnected. We feel like there are relationships that are starting to fall off. And this is what we have learned, is that this is actually a midlife thing. We start to feel a lack of belonging and we no longer want to fit in. We want to find deep connection, spiritual connection, even. So in this episode, we're going to break down where our sense of belonging even comes from, what threatens it, how it evolved, and how to cultivate it. So if you are someone who has been feeling the same way and looking for community, for connection, for your people, then this episode is for you. Stay tuned. You're a woman over 40 who spent your life being the one who holds it all together. But now your body's changing and your soul is done pretending everything is fine. Welcome to Midlife Rising. We're your hosts, Sherry and Jen, twin sisters and modern medicine women, here to help you rewire your stress response, balance your hormones, and reclaim your feminine power. Every episode is a rebellion against the rules you never agreed to and a return to yourself. Join us where midlife isn't a crisis, it's a catalyst. In the last couple of weeks, I've noticed that our clients and also ladies who have come to my in-person circles and meditations, and even some of my friends have been talking about how they feel like they can't find their people. Like they can't find they have people in their lives, they have friends, but they can't find the ones they really connect with. And I feel like this is I don't want to say a trend, but something like common that either it's like a sign of the times, or maybe it's a sign of our age. What do you think? Have you noticed this?
Yes, I have. Women talking about how now that their kids are going into university, they don't want to hang out with the hockey parents anymore. They've realized that they don't really connect on anything other than the fact that their kids played a sport together. They're soccer moms, whoever it is. And there's also research on this, that in midlife, women start to feel like they don't belong. So first thing, in the research that I've done on menopause at work, a lot of women feel like they don't belong not at work, but they don't belong with the younger circles anymore. They feel like they're a little bit isolated because often they're feeling symptoms, especially like if they're feeling the brain fog and the memory loss, they don't want to tell anybody because that might stall any future promotions. And they don't even want to tell other midlife women because it feels too vulnerable. So they can crack jokes about being in perimenopause, but actually saying what's truly going on, they tend to keep inside. And so they feel like they don't belong with that younger crowd anymore. They don't, not necessarily youngins, but like just people who aren't yet in perimenopause. And then outside of work, we are in like all areas of life, we know that the brain is going through a restructuring in perimenopause that makes you crave deeper meaning relationships.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's more what it is.
Mm-hmm. And so those other relationships don't feel necessarily fulfilling anymore. They're just kind of boring.
Yeah. And I wonder whether there's something around, well, there's certainly people in my life who I don't like, they're not searching for spiritual connection. There's also like at work, if I was in the corporate world right now, like when I was younger, we were going out after work and staying out till, I don't know, like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And And even actually, I had some friends recently who organized like a ladies' dance thing, like just a fun, like, let's just go and dance at one of the yoga studios. But they were starting at like 8:30 or something at night. And I was kind of like, well, I normally like to be home by 9. So I don't really want to go and do that.
Well, and sure, that's not everybody goes to bed at 9 o'clock when they hit their 50s. This is something I know, like a lot of women do. And for us, like I get up at 5:30 in the morning because I practice yoga or work out early in the morning. So that's become much more important to me.
But I think maybe that's one of the things that makes me feel like that's one of the things that I've noticed in common with the women that I do connect with. We all tend to go to bed early because we want to get up and meditate. We don't want to drink. Most of them don't drink. They might have a glass of wine or something, but we don't drink a ton because we don't want to waste the next day. We, like almost everyone that I can say I do have that connection with, they all have the same habits as I do.
Yeah, me too.
Like to me, connection comes from connecting with your spirit, connecting with your spirituality. And the people that I'm falling out of connection with are the ones who are maybe not as connected or maybe not seeking that.
Yeah, they're not seeking it. That's my role too.
Like I wonder whether it's the women who still want to have a whole bunch of drinks are the ones who are still numbing their emotions. They're still numbing that part of themselves that they're too afraid to connect to, and that's why they're not heart open.
Yeah. If they're doing that all the time. Yeah. I mean, of course, we're not judging people who go out and have a bunch of drinks every once in a while. Like that's not it, but it is a very different experience to the one that you and I are both cultivating at the moment, which is connecting with our spirituality, or we've been doing this for a while, connecting with our spirituality and connecting with people who we have really good, deep conversations with.
And connecting with our bodies, which is also connecting with your soul and your spirit.
Yeah. And nature and all of it. Yeah.
There's no judgment. I want people who listen to this podcast to never feel like they're judged. There's no spiritual hierarchy. It's just different. It's just a different way of looking at life, looking through different lenses, different experiences, whatever.
Yeah. So on this topic of feeling like you belong, why don't we start from the beginning and talk about, so now we know that there are many midlife women who feel like they don't belong. So where does it come from? Why are we feeling this way? Other than knowing that there is this sort of, it's not a divide, but it's a trend. Like there are women who have gone through the transition, and it's almost like if we see menopause as an awakening or an initiation into the next phase of life, then it's sort of like, it's harder to connect with people who haven't gone through that. So there might be that aspect of it. And certainly that was what the workplace research was telling me, was that it was becoming harder to connect with those people who hadn't gone through that transition. What else? What else are they, I'm trying to decide. My question is, what else are they feeling, or where does this lack of belonging, this sense come from?
Well, I think you touched on a pretty major one, which is like we are going through a major life transition when you move into your 40s. And so there's going to be some massive shakeups. And that is like, that's happening because of our hormonal shifts, but it's also because we're going through this big transition. It's sort of like when you were a teenager, you chances are you probably didn't have friends who were 8 or 9. They just were at a completely different phase of life. And when we move into our 40s and fertility starts to decline, kids start to get older, you're moving into a different phase of life. And so you don't connect in the same way with people in their 20s and 30s. You don't have the same interests. You don't have this, your energy is placed on different things. You're interested in different things. And that's perfectly natural. And not to say that you can't have friends who are 20 years younger than you, because I know people who do. And I do. Yet I tend to gravitate towards women who have gone through this transition because we have so much more in common and we're at the same phase of life. Actually, Mel Robbins talks about this in the Let Them theory. She talks about how there's 3 things that we need in order to create and really maintain close friendships. And one of the things that makes it easy to maintain a friendship is you're in the same phase of life, the same transition, or the same, not even transition, but the same phase of life.
Yes. And the other one is proximity. So to your point, like I'm feeling this right now because I'm in kind of this weird space where I want to hang out with women who are at my age-ish phase of life, but I have a 7-year-old. So all the moms.
You're spanning.
So yeah. And so all the people I'm tending to make, because I moved to a new old town, the people that I'm meeting have children who are 7. So they're 15 years younger than me. And it's different because and I love them. But at the same time, some of them I don't know that I would hang out with if we didn't have children the same age. And I'm struggling.
So you're spanning 2 phases of life because you're still.
So I don't feel like I belong in either. I don't feel like I belong in either one.
Mm-hmm. You're not squarely in one or the other.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm like this floater, and now I've become single again. So I feel like I don't belong with all the couples. Because how people like to have an even number at dinner parties and stuff like that. So I often feel like I don't belong in a lot of those crowds anymore either. So this sense of belonging or lack of this sense of belonging can be very pervasive.
Yes. This is where I really started to examine belonging, was in my childless phase I'm still in that phase of life, but when I was coaching childless women, and a lot of them were also single. And when you're in those 2, one or both of those categories, you can feel, it's not just a lack of belonging or loneliness, it's actually feeling excluded, which you might also feel as a single woman, that people are having dinner parties and they don't invite you because they want an even number or because they're used to hanging out with couples. And so it's not just a lack of belonging, it's actually feeling excluded.
About 6 months after we separated, one of our friends, male friends, said to me, find a dude so we can hang out again. And I was like, what? I have to go find a guy just so that we can hang out again? And he's married. Like he meant like with him and his wife. And so now I'm always going, I wonder if they're having people over and they're not inviting me. So I go into a bit of a cycle of kind of like feeling like I'm in high school again, wondering if people are having a party and I wasn't invited to it. It's like, I feel a bit embarrassed almost saying that when I'm in my 50s, but you can go back there.
Well, and that's the core wound. That's where that core wound lives, is somewhere in most of us, somewhere in childhood, we have felt like we were excluded or like we didn't belong. And not only that, but we made it mean something about us. Like we made it mean that there must be something wrong with me because I'm being excluded from the popular crowd. Or, for you and I remember our friends just decided we were no longer friends.
Yes, our friends just abandoned us.
Mm-hmm. So there's usually, and it doesn't really matter. It's so interesting actually when I coach women through this, especially in one-on-ones. This is what really validates this for me, is that I remember distinctly one of my clients saying, when I asked what's coming up, and she said, this is going to sound so silly, but I feel like I'm back in high school again and trying to fit into the popular crowd. and I don't fit in and I'm being excluded. And so this is not just, what this is telling me is that most of us have this core wound of feeling at some point like we didn't belong, we didn't fit in, or we were excluded in, like, advertently or not. And we made that mean something about us. Something about our worth, our self-worth tanked as a result of that. And so now, even in adulthood, it feels so silly. You know, I did this the other day. I ran into someone and she said, "Oh, okay, I'll see you tomorrow." And I said, "Oh, what's tomorrow?" "Oh, we're all meeting at this place, and for so and so's birthday." And I kind of went, "Oh, I didn't know about that." And she backpedaled and went, "Oh, I must have the wrong day," or something that was so transparent. And there was a piece of me that was like, I wasn't invited.
Yeah, of course.
To the party. Like, I wasn't invited to the party. And it takes you right back to when you were 12.
I know. Actually, Tara Brach, who's a very renowned Buddhist teacher, talks about how it is a human experience. Like, every human in the world has felt like they didn't belong at some point. And I was listening, the context of her saying that was actually during the Black Lives Matter, when all that stuff was happening in the States around, I have forgotten the name of the man who was killed by a police officer. And she was saying, like, how to put yourself in their shoes is to go back and think of a time when you felt excluded on the playground, in high school, or whatever. And then imagine that you feel that all the time, not just in that specific situation. Anyway, all that to say that it is a universal feeling that we all have.
Yeah. And, Jen, like, maybe coming to this is a good segue to the evolution of belonging.
Yes.
Because that's really where it starts.
Yeah, I actually find this so interesting. So what's the evolutionary link?
It's all around belonging to your tribe. So this is root chakra energy. It's the first chakra. We've talked about chakras before. This is the one that sits around the base of the spine.
Right. It is the tribal chakra. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's the one that develops first when we are babies, because the first thing that we need is safety, security, and food. Like, we need to survive. And so our first instinct, this first chakra develops so that we build a bond with the people who create safety and security and feed us and nurture us in a way and keep us warm. So from an evolutionary perspective, this was a survival instinct. You had to belong. If you didn't belong, or if you did something to upset the tribe and were threatened to be kicked out of the tribe, your survival was at stake. It was very difficult. Our primal ancestors would have found it very difficult. It would mean almost certain death if you were kicked out of the tribe, because you needed community, you needed the tribe to survive.
Well, and Cher, as a baby, you won't survive without your tribe.
No. Mm-hmm.
And
no, you have to have your family around you.
You have to. Like, human infants can't survive without the tribe. So, so it makes sense that this is an instinctual need.
So when we feel threatened, when we feel like we don't belong, it's the same feeling. Oh no, I don't fit in. I'm not a part of the tribe. And that that fires up our nervous system. We feel a lack of safety and security. Even though we can survive in today's world, although arguably you can't. I mean, you still need to go to the store. Like, you can live independently and go buy all the things you need, but you still rely on somebody in that store to collect all of the goods in the store and the farmers to create. So we're still living in communities, even if we're isolated. We still have to rely on other people.
I think this is why when you feel like you don't belong in your own family, it feels even more hurtful than if you don't belong in your tribe at school, or, you don't fit in at work or wherever else you're playing.
I totally agree. If a child is at school and they don't belong, or they feel like they don't belong, they can't fit in, and they come home to a safe place where they belong in their family, they feel nurtured, they feel secure, they feel safe there, they feel like they can be open-hearted, they can talk to their parents, that belonging trumps belonging at school. If you feel like you don't belong at home, that is your root. Like, that is totally shaking your roots.
So you're going to have a core wound, a belief about yourself, your entire life that you don't belong. Often that will also include, there's something wrong with me.
And that can be something like, your parents are both really sporty, athletic, and you're not. I felt that way.
Yeah.
We had two very athletic parents, another sister who is also athletic. They were interested in sports. They were good at them. And I did not, at least I was not good at the sports that, like team sports and sports that we were doing at school, or sports that were available to us at the time. So yeah. I always felt like I can't come home and talk about how I was the last one chosen for the soccer team, because nobody in my family understands that.
Yeah, except for me.
Well, you. Yes. I belong
but
with
it's
you.
still, but when I know, but you know what? That brings up another point though, that there's a difference between not being accepted by your siblings and not being accepted by your parent, or not feeling accepted by your parents, or not feeling like you belong with your parents, because you need that connection with your mother in particular. And so if you don't feel that, you're going to feel it. I think the feeling's a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, it's your mother. We read about this in Mother Hunger. The first person that you're going to build a bond with is your mother. So if you don't build a strong bond with her from infancy, then you may have this feeling like this lack of safety. And it's very subconscious. Like if you went and asked me when I was 7 if I felt like I belonged with my family, I would have said, well, of course I do. Like I wouldn't have understood that. It's only now looking back and reading about these things, researching them, getting an understanding of my own core wounds, that I can look back and see I really didn't feel, in certain aspects, I didn't feel like I belonged.
Yeah, that requires quite a lot of self-awareness. Even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought about that. It was actually only when you brought it up to me that I started to go, that was why I felt so uncomfortable in certain situations within our family dynamic. And I really felt that something was wrong with me then. I'm not sporty, so I was born defective.
Yes, exactly. Like whose genes? The other thing that comes to mind is how much the way that our society is structured has changed from our primal evolutionary roots. We live in these nuclear families in all these little boxes or big boxes. And when you go inside and shut the front door, that is your space. And we didn't used to live like that. Our ancestors lived much more openly. And, we have this saying, it takes a village to raise a child. We don't live that way. Like, I think people think we do, because when we raise children now, sure, you might have teachers and other parents may play a role, but it's not the same as living in a tribal space where, other mothers may be breastfeeding another child, or they may discipline
a child that's not theirs.
A child that's not theirs, yes. They spent a lot more time together. There weren't these divisions, like this is my family and my house, and we take care of us first.
Sure, just to go on a slight tangent here, just think about that effect on your stress levels. Because way back, you had a community of women, or of people who were searching for food. And if you didn't find berries today, somebody else found something. Nuts or berries, whatever they found, whatever they had. And they shared it. That was the sharing, gifting economy. Now we have so much stress on ourselves because if it's like right now, I'm like, if I can't make money, it's just me. I mean, my ex as well, like obviously he's helping, but it's like there's so much pressure on just me, which is probably why my lack of, why can't I say this properly? Like why I'm feeling this sense of not belonging at the moment, because even just living in my house every other night by myself feels wrong. Like I feel like a twang of fear when I'm in the house by myself versus when I'm in the house with my kid, who will provide no protection for me if something were to happen. But there's another body in there. In here.
That's so interesting, isn't it? That still makes you feel more secure.
Yeah. So imagine that, like what that does to our stress levels. And women today, we keep thinking, oh, I'm not, like I have friends who've said, I'm not really stressed right now. Like things are good at work and whatever. But then it's like, but you're not thinking about all these other ways that we're stressed that didn't exist when our bodies evolved this way.
Even things like when parents get sick, if you don't have the like grandparents living close by, or even relying on, we talking about another issue, we find it so hard to rely on our friends to ask them for help. I remember when one of my close friends got sick, she ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks. She lived across the street. So I'm like, your husband needs to go be with you. Send the kids over here. I will make them dinner, get them settled, go to the hospital. If you don't have that around you, then getting sick feels like a big stressor. And the number of women that I know who just keep pushing through when they're sick because they got to take care of the kids. Somebody does.
Yeah. Especially when they're young-ish. Or young, or even even mine is 7. And so she wants me to play with her and I have to take care of her. And even when I'm sick, like I don't have much of a choice, especially now when we have, since COVID, flus and stuff that are so easily,
transmittable.
Thank you. Transmittable. I wanted to say transported to another person and I couldn't get the right word. That like our parents are really helpful, but they don't want her when she's sick
because she's probably going to get them sick, and
because they might get sick, and I don't want them to get sick. So, but that was very different when we lived in tribes with thousands of miles in between tribes or whatever, where illness wasn't the same.
And you had if you got sick, you had other people to, like if you broke your leg, say, or something happened that you couldn't take care of your children, there's other people around that they'll be out in the tribe playing or going gathering with the other women or whatever. They're fine. Yeah. So there's an inherent level of stress on parents who live in these nuclear families that don't have that kind of support. And yet this is so normal that this is flying under the radar. Like we don't even realize that we have this kind of stress. And then I'm also thinking about all of the single people who live out there by themselves, and how much additional fear are they experiencing every single night because they're alone in the house?
And the fear of, well, then who's going to take care of me?
Yeah.
Later, like as we age. So yeah, there's a lot of stress on when you don't belong or when you don't have people around you. So do you think we can move on to, I want to know what our listeners are probably thinking is, well, then how do I fix it? Fix isn't the right word, but like, how do I get belonging?
Well, this is a piece of the Midlife Red Tent. We talk about belonging in the Red Tent. We're going to be talking about it on our next mini retreat. So there's a process. There's two types of belonging. There's the physical belonging and this feeling of belonging with other people, connecting with other people. I see that as more of connection. And then there's also a feeling, Brene Brown calls this belonging to yourself, braving the wilderness. And that is being so secure that when someone excludes you, your self-worth doesn't go to shards. It's, I belong so securely to myself that I feel like I can be authentically myself without trying to fit in and be like other people. So that's a different kind. I feel like that's a different kind of belonging or different facet of it.
Yeah. There's physical belonging. Like, do I actually have people around me? And then a feeling of belonging. And what I think is happening with many midlife women, or the part that we can help with midlife women, is the feeling of belonging, no matter where you are. Just cultivating that sense of, I'm okay that I don't belong with that crowd because they're not my people. And I feel a deep innate sense of belonging in this crowd. And I don't make either of those things mean something about me. It doesn't mean I'm bad or something's wrong with me because I don't belong with that crowd over there.
We get to a point in our lives, generally when we hit midlife, where there's something that awakens within us that causes us to want to live more authentically and more true to ourselves. And that means that we have to let go of fitting in. So we no longer, it means we no longer go along with the opinions of everybody else in the room because we don't want to rock the boat. We share our authentic voice, which means I am fully secure in myself. And hopefully it's a safe enough place where I can share my differing opinion and I won't be kicked out of the tribe, but I'm willing to risk that.
When estrogen starts to circulate in your bloodstream and in your brain goes, like in puberty, your brain goes through a restructuring that tells you to see the world from a relational lens. Mindy Peltz talks about that all the time on her podcast. There's lots of research around it. So there's a brain restructuring, or I shouldn't say lots of research. It's relatively new research. So then when we hit midlife and estrogen starts to decline, another restructuring goes on that tells us to stop serving everybody else. And we don't have to take care of everybody else. And we don't have to foster all those relationships anymore. So that part we know. My theory is that our bodies and our brains are now telling us to be more truly authentic, as you've been talking about. But we have also been conditioned from all the messaging in our society today that tells us, no, you have to keep serving everybody else. You have to keep all those relationships up, even if you don't want them, because it's unkind if you don't keep up those relationships. And so you have to stay in touch with your college roommate, even though you really don't like them anymore. Or I shouldn't say like them, but you really don't get along with them or really truly connect with them anymore, but you should stay with them. So we have all this conditioning that doesn't allow us to be authentic. And then we don't feel like we can be our authentic selves, and that puts stress on us, which causes symptoms. And then we also feel like we don't belong because we're still trying to hang out with people and serve everybody and keep these relationships going. And it's actually not what our bodies want to do.
Yeah. Like I said, there's so many steps to this. I'm going to share a couple things. So one is finding the courage to let those relationships go that are no longer serving you, that no longer feel aligned. Maybe they're even draining you. And going along with this year, we were just talking about the Chinese New Year coming up, and we are still in the year of the snake. We are still in the year of the snake, which is all about shedding. So it's allowing yourself and finding the courage to let go of those. It doesn't matter whether it's those relationships that are no longer aligned and feeling okay. There might be emotions that come with that, but feeling okay about that and opening up space for new relationships to arrive that do feel more aligned.
You know what's really hard though, Cher, and I'm finding this in my life right now, is being vulnerable enough to find your people takes effort and courage as well. So it's not just opening space for new people to come in. You have to be vulnerable because you have to be your authentic self. So for me, I have to be in our small little town here talking about a spirituality and energy healing modalities and all the things I love to talk about, which are kind of seen as woo-woo by a lot of people. And so I have to really cultivate my own sense of self-worth in order to be vulnerable enough to share all that. And because it's only if I share it that somebody will go, oh, I like her. I want to hang out with more of that.
Yeah.
All the conditioning from society is telling us not to be authentic.
Yeah, it's telling us to fit in. It's telling us to, it's telling us to be nice. It's telling us to do what everybody else is doing to fit in versus belong.
I've been doing some research on this lately, and it struck a chord with me because I felt this recently, is that there are midlife women who are struggling with this even within their own families. Like they go to a family gathering or whatever and just having Christmas here. I felt this as well, where you sort of go to a family gathering, everybody's saying like, how are you? What's new or whatever. And you're pretending everything is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't feel any kind of connection because you haven't actually, nobody knows what you're going through. And I just went, that's exactly what it is. Because I was going through that at our family gathering at Christmas when I was really struggling. My first Christmas after separating and first Christmas living in two houses. And my daughter had said it was the worst Christmas ever because she didn't want to wake up with only one parent there. And it was really hard. I was really having a hard time. And I had to go through the entire day pretending that things were okay. And I sort of like dropped a couple of hints with our other sister and like a couple of mom and stuff, and nothing really landed with them. And so I felt so alone. Like coming home from that, I just felt so crappy. And it was only like a week or two later that I had a long conversation with our sister and told her everything. And she went, I'm so glad you finally told me everything. And our relationship has changed since then because we've connected in a whole new way.
This was something else, Jen, that I learned from coaching childless women. Because what we think will happen when we're going through a tough time is that other people will have compassion for us. They will empathize. And we have these expectations of our family and our close friends to check in with us or to ask us how it's going or to know that we're having a rough time. And we don't. Or they don't. You know, I've been in that situation myself when I was going through all my stuff. Like I had my 3 miscarriages and struggling to get pregnant. Nobody asked me how I was doing. And my first reaction was, they don't care. They don't have any compassion for me. Well, I never told them what I was going through. I didn't feel vulnerable enough to call anybody close to me up and say, I could really use some support right now. I'm going through a tough time. So we have to take the first step ourselves. We as a society, I see so much of this. We expect other people to know what we're going through. We expect other people to stop offending us. We expect other people to stop triggering us, saying things that make us angry. And we see the world as lacking compassion, lacking empathy. It starts with us. I think this is the most important, the crux of what, if there's anything, dear listener, that you take away, from this podcast, it is that your belonging starts when you open up your heart, when you share your when you get vulnerable, when you have the courage to share something, that is when you're going to connect. And connection that's the root of belonging.
Yeah. The biggest fear for me in being vulnerable and sharing what I was going through was I was afraid I was going to be judged.
Exactly. It's always fear that keeps us from sharing our most vulnerable selves, what we're going through, either afraid that we're going to be judged or afraid that we're not going to be met with the compassion that we need.
Right. That would be too. Yeah.
And we can't do anything about that. Like, we can't control how other people think. All we can do is take a risk and share the thing. And then hopefully you have, this is how you know who your people are. If they're willing to listen and have compassion.
I'm willing to bet that if you share with the right person, they will be compassionate.
If they don't, then it doesn't mean something about you. It usually means something about them. Like, either they have not been taught to hold space for their friends who are in pain, or it's too uncomfortable, or they're in too much pain themselves that they can't even provide that kind of support. And how many people are we are living in a world of pain right now. People don't have the space to be supportive of other people because they're in so much pain themselves.
Okay, so let's just sum up those steps then. What did you say? You said, have the courage to let go of the relationships that are no longer working for you. Then it was have the courage to be vulnerable enough and open the space with new people. And then I think or to be not even just new people to invite them in, but people who you already are connected with to actually go deeper.
So those are two big things. And then we kind of went on a tangent, but it's still related. It's still having the vulnerability or having the courage to be vulnerable with people, to open up to what you're actually going through and inviting connection. That is what builds connection, is when you're willing to be courageous enough to share your true self, what you're going through, what you think, what you feel, what your opinions are. It's all about courage and vulnerability.
So hard. So this is a relatively new module in our program. I think I'm going to have to do it myself because I haven't done it yet, Cher. And you created all of that. So I'm really looking forward to the mini retreat, which you, Sherry, will be leading, which is on February the 8th. And everybody, our listeners, are all invited. It's online, 1:00 Eastern time, February the 8th. We will be talking about belonging and fostering a sense of belonging. So if you want to join us, the link is in the show notes.
Okay, I think that's a wrap. If you have found this episode valuable, please share it with a friend who might need to hear it, or rate, review, all those good things. We would so appreciate it.